Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to this session on infrastructure and community development. I hope I'm audible enough and you can see our lovely panelists here in the video. Uh, my name is Waqas Hassan, and I'm the president of the Internet Society Pakistan Islamabad chapter, and I'm also the vice chair for APR IGF. Uh, so with me in the panel today are some fantastic people who have done fantastic work for community. As you know that this session is about infrastructure and community development, community networks. So uh, these are one of the few champions that we have in the Asia Pacific who have worked incredibly hard to bring the internet to its and made actually a difference in the internet in their respective countries and the areas that they work upon. So before I introduce them and before we start this session formally, I'd like to just read out some of the housekeeping rules. The first thing is that the interpretation is available in French and Spanish. So please choose the corresponding session entry on the agenda to join your preferred language. Closed captioning is also available, for which a big thank you to the sponsors Amazon and Flex Optics. And I'd also like to remind you that our event is guided by Internet Society's Code of Conduct. So kindly engage respectfully and responsibility, which I believe all our ISOC members already are. You could probably also see a chat area on the right hand side. So use this for sharing comments and asking questions. You can ask questions in English, French or Spanish. But kindly format your questions with your first name and country. And feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat as well. I'd actually prefer if you guys are interacting with each other as well, talking about what you like and what are the takeaways from this session. And while you introduce yourself, just write which is your favorite superhero and why. For example, I'll start with Batman because I love Batman only because he's the only one without any superpowers and he's still a superhero. So yeah, that's mine. This session is being recorded, and recording will be made available on the platform after the event. And if you're active on social media, please use the hashtag CommunityWeek21 during the event. So now that I'm done with the boring stuff, let's get straight to the panel discussion that we have. And I'll start with the introduction of my panel today. First up, we have Anupam Agrawal, who is the chair of India Internet Foundation, a not-for-profit organization working on programs relating to trust on internet, building communities on internet technologies. He has been the founding chair of ISOC Kolkata and twice the ISOC ambassador to IGF. Then we have Mr. Gazi Zehadul Kabir, or GZ Kabir as we call him. He's the Chief Strategy Officer at System Integration. He has been an organizer for SANOG, and he, as a chair, he has just stepped down, but still very engaged in the community. He's also the founding member and trustee of BD NOG, the Bangladesh NOG, and a very experienced and distinguished tutor for Internet Society's online course on network operations with a 24 plus years of experience. So that's the two panelists that we have, and last but not the least is Achie Atienza from Philippines. He leads the core optimization of Globe Telecom's IP ecosystem in Philippines. He's passionate about evolving the local IP community, driving the Philippine Network Operators Group, PHNOG as the chair, as well as being part of the ISOC Philippines Board of Trustees. So this is the introduction, but just to let you know, we have these three speakers from three different backgrounds and three different countries here. But one thing is particularly common between the three of them. And the common thing is that all three of them have an extensive experience on how to do voluntary work for internet development in their countries. So that's something common, and I think that is something all of us share as ISOC members as well. So I hope that you would be able to learn from them as well. So first of all, I'd go to Anupam. So Anupam, you have been an instrumental part of the Kolkata IXP. developing it, from right from the start, right to the point where it got operational and all. So would you please tell us your experience about how to establish a neutral community-led IXP, please?
Sure, Waqas, and thanks for the question, and thanks Internet Society for pulling all of us in. So it is a fantastic morning here in Calcutta, and lovely talking to all of you. So one thing leads to another, Waqas, and that's what happened in 2014. And I'll have to take all of you few years back. In 2014, we were trying to put a root server instance in Calcutta, and the question which popped up was that whether you want to do it in an open way or in an IXP. And that's the first time we thought that, okay, now we'll require an IXP in Calcutta. So while the root instance was still being planned, ISP was the thought which came into the minds of the people in ISOC Kolkata board. And so few of us were given the responsibility to take it forward from the board. And we found out there is one IXP in the country. Okay. And there is definitely no community and no concept of community exchange. So, and in fact, we were also not knowing at that point of time. We were just exploring the concept of IX. Now, when we started conversing with the members of these existing IX, we found that people are peered, but they don't share routes. Now, imagine 7 years back, the thing which I'm talking now was almost as alien as anything else. So routes were something which were new for us. So, but we found out that people do peer for the sake of peering, but they don't actually take the benefit out of it. And that's what led to the next course of development, which is now make something or do something for the community where they really start taking benefits. So all this time we now landed up in 2016. So we had created an IX with a very small switch. We had one root server instance peered there with no other members there. And the question was, who will come first, the members or the CDNs or anybody else? So fortunately, I must compliment Akamai at this point in time, where they supported us by allowing us to host their content in the IX, which was just taking shape. In the process, we had to create a working group to manage this entire thing. But remember, 2.5 years, still no members. And that is the most disastrous period of the entire journey. Every day we used to think that we should close it down next week because there was no earning. People were pulling in from their pockets to sustain the entire infrastructure. Now 2018, we got our first, more or less the first couple of ISPs into the exchange who were taking advantage of the Akamai node. And then we had 2019, we had SANOG organized in Calcutta. And that's where the first time we got the entire community in place, where a lot of ISPs came to know about this initiative. They ensured that they are going to help us in terms of expanding it. Okay, and they became part of the working group which was formed. So I must convey my thanks to Kabir and group who organized SANOG in Calcutta. And it was the first time that IX was taking shape and we had to rename it. So we renamed it as Kolkata IX. So the earlier name was IIFON IX, okay, because that was the organizational home in the Internet Foundation. But then we renamed it for the purpose of community to Kolkata IX. And then things started moving forward. Now we were facing a situation where the old switch was not good enough. Now, so we approached ISOC. ISOC contributed a very fine Arista switch, which is now there in the Kolkata IX. And now we are having a consistent traffic of more than 10 to 12 gigs every day with more than 20 gig traffic when IPL happens. Okay, so you know the craze of IPL, and because we have hosted Akamai, which is hosting Hotstar, so the traffic process that amount. And now the working group decided to take it forward, and we are now hosted in one of the Tata data centers in Calcutta. So Kolkata IX currently is now hosted at 2 places in the same city for ease of people to come and peer. So with more than 13 peers as of now, 3 to 4 content providers, the exchange is making its impact on the community. Broadly at a high level, what we have understood that there is approximately a saving of 40 to 60% for different ISPs. Okay, and that's the impact of this neutral and community-driven IX. And the savings occur in the IX because we run on cost recovery mode. So whatever additional we save by deducting the expenses and all, that amount is used for going into the rural IX. So that's the next step which we are taking here. So I'll stop here, Waqas, and then we'll look forward to some questions and your interventions. Thank you.
I think the last bit, of course, the whole journey is pretty fantastic, but the last bit that you told us about putting your funds from main IXP into rural IXP, that is something I think one of the takeaways that others can take out of this conversation as well. So I think I'll now jump towards Achie. Achie, so what are the aims and objectives of PHNOG, the Philippines Network Operators Group, and how it has helped to nurture technical communities in the Philippines? So, you being the chair, can you please share your experience with us?
Yeah, sorry, got muted. Yeah, anyway, yep, thanks for that very good question. Well, historically, what the main intention was for PHNOG to be neutral ground for everybody. Before that, there was a very passive environment that we had. Nobody was talking, nobody was communicating. It was like pure competition. If they see you talking, that's collaboration in a not so good way. So what we try to do is to have a venue for collaboration and harmony. And the PHNOG conference actually provided that environment for giving and sharing. So when we were successful in the first step, we didn't really try to limit it to the tech community. So we wanted to be as open as possible, as like the whole ecosystem is not just purely tech. There's business and there are other facets that actually is part of the whole thing that makes the internet work. And each has its roles, big or small, different players, different perspectives, and that was key for everything to work. But in order to do that, we needed actually to more or less jumpstart that community. There were a lot of attempts, basically, and to some extent, we more or less kind of lose hope already. Is this worth it? Do we really need to do this? What does this do to me or to the community? So that's like one of the questions that needs to be addressed or answered. What's in it for them or what's in it for the operator? Part of answering that question was actually a change in mindset as well. Like, is it just for me or is it about helping the community? Because personally, from my end, when I started attending international conferences, it was an experience that gave me the bigger picture. So there's collaboration with other members of the internet community. Why don't I see that in the Philippines? So we try to more or less copy or replicate that. Yeah, the fact that other people external are trying to help us, it will be a no-brainer for us within the Philippines to help each other. So that actually was one of the main drivers. We actually have lots of volunteers now. We even have student volunteers. You maybe think of it as continuity for the next generation. We also tried to address diversity. So initially it was like a male-driven community. Now we have females. We have separate sessions, and we actually have one peering forum coming up this December for women in tech. And collectively, that actually shaped the movement of where PHNOG is today. And I could say we've come a long way from day one or day zero, or whatever that is. So, but it's always a work in progress, basically. Thanks.
Fantastic. I mean, the way you highlighted the need for collaboration and the way you saw it in the international conferences and you wanted to replicate and now we can see the fruits of that. I mean, in the shape of PH-NOG and the other amazing things that the Philippines is doing. So that's I think a good takeaway for us. So Kabir, and now I'll come to you. You have been an instructor for the ISOC course on network operations for a long time now. And I think there are hundreds of students that you've seen going through that course and learning from it. So based on your experience, what would you say? I mean, how strong is the demand in the Asia Pacific communities to learn about networking, and what kind of impact do you think this course has on the learning of the students?
Thank you, Waqas, for having me here. It's an wonderful opportunity for me to let you know that the community building was not so easy in the beginning when internet actually flourished in our region. But to answer you properly, let me go back a bit. I remember back in 2005, SANOG first came to Bangladesh. SANOG is the South Asian Network Operators Group that Anupam already mentioned. And there, few of the ISPs were having problem running their day-to-day operations in the way it should be. So SANOG came, and the first IXP came to Bangladesh at the same time, but the ISPs didn't know what to do with the IXPs and what to do with the security things, what to do with the service things, how they can make new things available. So the experts around the world who actually work in the industry came to Bangladesh and started a 5 days workshop, hands-on workshop with some conference materials as well. And that changed the whole scenario. They actually gave us really industry experience to our guys and formed a new community who can talk to each other. That's how the community built in our region, first in our country, and it followed to Nepal 2006, Bhutan 2007-8, and Pakistan, Karachi, and similar time. All had a very good, healthy community, pairing with each other, understanding the technology, the dynamics, asking questions, getting answers, and this thing continued on. During the last 15 years, it was a tremendous success, bringing people together, giving them the industry experience and getting new services, new things rolling out in our region. Now the pandemic came, and ISOC, Internet Society, came up with such an intuitive and dynamic platform where the learners, mainly they're the newcomers in their industry, they are either from the network background or from a system background, whatever it is, from the scratch, they started feeling that the platform organized by Internet Society in their learning arena is pretty similar what they experienced or some of them experienced during the early ages face-to-face meetings. And the hands-on trainings are organized in such a way that they can learn from the scratch and develop their own service and render into the practical world. So practical oriented training gave them a boost in their career, pumped them to some extent to make them learn more. And a recent experience in one of the government in Asian countries where we got 100 out of 100 success rate in the training, and they are now publishing their comments in different forums saying we learned this and now we are learning this on our own and implementing things in our country to make more internet or technology available to the people. So overall, the journey is really successful journey, making people understand what to do to learn and how easy to learn, and then I think the new generation is ready to have any opportunity to learn anything regarding the internet technology or the overall ICT. Thank you, Waqas.
Thank you, Kabir. I think, of course, we all are aware of the way and the kind of a pioneering role that Bangladesh or ISOC Bangladesh played in sort of starting a trend of IXPs in the whole South Asian region. And I think your experience, you carry that experience in the way you conduct your training courses as well. So. And I'm quite sure there would be many of your students that are now volunteering for the IXPs in the region. With that, I think one of the things that I'd like to ask Anupam now is that you see it's an ISOC space that we're sitting in right now, and there are many of the audience from ISOC itself. And you have been the chair of ISOC Kolkata as well, founding chair of ISOC Kolkata. So how do you think, what is the importance of the ISOC chapters, and how important is it for ISOC chapters themselves to work on these IXPs? And bring all of the stakeholders and make sure that there is some kind of peering happening between the operators, so that the internet could be cheap, it could be faster as well. Anupam, I think you're on mute.
Oh, I was speaking on mute. So thanks, Waqas. So not necessarily, Waqas, every chapter has to work on an IXP. Okay, so the chapter itself is driven by what the members they have. So fortunately for ISOC Calcutta, the way it has happened, or you can call it the effect of the region where we operate, we have got a lot of technical power or resources in the chapter. And that is what is driving the ISOC Kolkata chapter to take projects which are more of a technical orientation, which they have where they can showcase some of their technical skills. So you will appreciate the fact that configuring a root instance or configuring an IX requires some kind of voluntary work on the technical side. It is not just going and networking. While that is an important part for an IX, not necessarily every chapter will have that kind of powerhouse to drive it, things like that. Because we operate an IX 24/7 with zero manpower. Okay, so people in the night, if there is an outage, they come from home. Okay, and that is the kind of commitment you require. So not necessarily every chapter will have that, and they have to work on it. But if the demand is there in the region, okay, and particularly the region where we operate, the Southeast Asia, I think the people from Bangladesh, Philippines, India, all of us are in the call, and from your region as well. So I think the resilience of internet very strongly depends upon the number of IXPs in the region. Okay, so from that standpoint, if the chapter wants to contribute to the resilience dimension of internet, then IX is definitely one of the areas where they should work upon. And fortunately, ISOC has got a very focused approach on IX at this point in time. And Manras, if you take example, that is again a second layer of intervention from ISOC, where they've ensured that routing security is taken care of by all the operators. So what if we are working with the idea of internet for all, and we are working that cheap internet and safe internet is delivered to the people, then IXs are definitely one of the ways, and it is being supported by ISOC at this point in time.
Right. I think that's a good point, because if I see in Pakistan as well, our own IXP, ISOC was a major part of that, of the IXP deployment over here. First one was in the federal capital Islamabad, and then in another provincial capital Lahore, and then now in Karachi. So and our chapter was of course part of that process as well. And I think it's a two-way process too. Not only you contribute to the IXP, you actually learn from it as well. Yep. You get exposure to the operators and others too. So yeah, that's I think that is a fair point. So far, I don't see any questions in the chat window. So if anyone wants to ask a question, you can just type it in, and we can throw it to any of the panelists. And while you do that, I'll go back to Achie And Achie, would you like to tell us? I mean, what kind of a role do the technical communities or something like a PHNOG has in the infrastructure development itself? Because essentially, it's a discussion forum. It's a group of people that are talking to each other about raising issues. It's not a technical forum. Does not require any technical setup like an IXP. So how does NOGs actually help in infrastructure development?
Thanks for the question. For this case, it's actually good that I am both representing PHNOG and Internet Society. So that's two birds in one stone kind of a thing. But basically, if you see it from a certain angle, it's basically the idea is enabling the community, providing them with knowledge and resources to perform their roles. And having said that, those roles are not necessarily limited to technical roles, because there are other functions that actually complement that to make the infrastructure or upgrades happen. From a tech perspective, the NOG or parties that are part of the NOG functions as a SME or a subject matter expert, at least for reference on best practice, alignment with global peers, what needs to be done, communications, contact person from different parties in the community. And this is actually helpful because it's not just you, it's not just them, it's basically everybody, and there's some sort of collaboration that needs to happen. And there is also a trust that needs to be within the community as well. Now, the extensive work in knowledge sharing is a big deal, actually, coming from our end, since we started with a very passive kind of environment. Nobody talks. So sharing something is actually like divulging a strategy already, but we tried to make it neutral, because what you do or not do may affect others in this setup. That's why the conference became a neutral area for sharing and collaboration. And since we saw success in the conference, we tried to more or less replicate that, not necessarily limited in conferences, because we actually do two conferences a year. So we tried to spread it out. We started to do like pocket sessions, smaller workshops, specific workshop or setups that is requested by the members of the community, whether technical or non-technical, and we find volunteers to help us with that one. And one of the good improvements we saw is, after some international sessions, we tried to do the trainer kind of model. So after those attendees in the international conferences, we started replicating that, and they're the ones now doing the training locally. And then it's like, okay, you're next. We were more or less trying to also continue the good domino effect for this one, and more or less continuity. Now, going back to ISOC and stage collaboration, it doesn't actually need to be very formal. Sometimes informal stuff makes it happen. There are actually a lot of overlaps in what we do here. ISOC members, PHNOC members, there are actually crossover members. But the overlap in policy, tech, infra, community, etc. is actually good. Some people would say it's chaos. Sorry for the word, but I see that as opportunity for collaboration and synergy. So the fact that we have that, there's good time, or there's a good agenda to talk about it and discuss and probably sort it out. So we actually had a lot of those collaboration that brought us to several sessions, individual, company specific, or the pocket session I mentioned, and there's always ongoing collab. And to some point, we had a surplus of volunteers or a surplus of presentations or materials that it made it hard to turn down those parts. So at first you were trying to figure out how can we do this? We don't have speakers. We don't know how to do. And now you're overwhelmed with that one. You have to say no. So saying no is actually very, very hard. So yeah, but it's actually good. And I don't think the chaos will cease, and which is actually good in a way. Maybe it will just align or more or less have a structure as we go along, and that's actually good because we try to always improve. But the key thing, more or less, I see is there should be a champion or champions driving this, some sort of Jedi or something related to that, who will more or less see this through. But I think more importantly, we have to convince yourselves, like have to convince you or me. You have to believe it, because although there's a champion and it doesn't make sense to you, there's no drive. So there needs to be passion within yourself, and it will normally start with you. And that's what we try to do in the community. And I think more or less we were quite successful, but again, it's always a work in progress. Thanks.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you mentioned was that, somehow I've also experienced the same thing, that collaboration actually brings more inclusivity into whatever you're doing. And in fact, talking about inclusivity, I'd actually like to ask Kabir as well that with so much experience that you have in the tech community, and of course being a tutor and being chair of SANOG and so many profiles that hats that you wear, I think you'd be best suited to tell us, I mean, why do we see that there is less representation of women in technology? I mean, we do, I mean, this comes out of the inclusive dialogue that we're having here. We don't have any female in the panel though, but at least we can talk about it. That, why do you think is that so, and what can we do as ISOC or general community member to, improve that situation?
So, Waqas bhai, thank you again. Question is very tough. Two parts, why and what. So why, yes, there is an existing gap, definitely. I think around 18% participation in the globally. But to analyze the root cause, I think sociologists already did so many times, along with some relevant organizations. So we are not going to discuss the root cause of why women are not that much encouraged to participate in the ICT jobs or technical jobs. But what I can say that with a continued support from Internet Society, SANOG is encouraging participation of women in hands-on training through its fellowship program since long. And where they can fly overseas, come to different countries, stay there, learn on their own pace, and they are learning from the best and get encouraged and encouraging other colleagues. That's a beautiful instance, which is now followed mostly by all NOGs in our region. Epinic also following that recently. Apricot is long been following. So most of the organizations are having some of the curriculum where women participants are hugely, seriously encouraged. And rest of the world, I think they are following now the same path. Well, let us come back to ISOC, Internet Society. I'm a proud member of Bangladesh Dhaka chapter, and I think they are doing a wonderful job encouraging women to participate in the peerings, encouraging to talk more about their participations, their problems, hardship, the time boundness and the social security, they are now talking. So I remember let me share one incident. What happened? The encouragement is going on, and I remember last year during a network operations course we organized under Agrawal via ISOC learning platform. One of the top performers was a young girl from Sri Lanka. She was gorgeous. She was really a good learner. She even got a very respectable new job during the course due to her excellent participation and performance. I think we need to organize similar training for, especially for women, so that they are encouraged and they can encourage others, and also encourage them to get involved in the peering space, so that most of the people can learn. Learn not to bound their women colleagues or participants to be in the ICT space. Just one more note that whatever we talk, to some extent, sociologists already mentioned all these things. But what we do not mention these days, that pandemic has changed a lot of things. Not only the economic dynamics, but also the dynamics of the women who were normally sitting idle most of the times in their household works. Now, what happened? We can see lots of women coming as entrepreneur or with some small e-commerce and selling perhaps one product. What happened? We are seeing this from the remote areas as well, from not only from our urban, but from the rural as well. So the perception of our people are changing a bit nowadays. This perception will definitely increase the participation of women in the coming days. I'm very hopeful about it. Thank you, Waqas.
I think that's a fantastic point you mentioned at the end about COVID and how it has changed the way things are being done. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, there should be more women-specific event, because Achie also mentioned particularly women in tech event that I saw Philippines is probably planning to have. We at Islamabad are also going to have a huge event next month. It's a hybrid event we're going to do in a very nice hotel here. We want to invite the women in tech leaders and to share their success stories and the challenges that they faced. And we're also going to run a parallel training for girls in computers and networking. So we do hope that we're able to get good audience for that, and how to actually move forward on that. This is something that we as a chapter are also facing in terms of lack of female participation in our own leadership as well. So I think that is kind of a universal thing that we all facing upon here. So so far I don't see any questions in the chat window. So I'd just like to have one closing statement for each of you in about because since this is an ISOC community event and we're all sort of volunteers here, we're working for Internet in our, and we all face challenges. I mean, Anupam talked about the challenges that they faced when they established the IXP, right? For the first few months, I mean, they've almost lost hope. And Achie mentioned about the need for collaboration when you're doing something like this, and to have a support system with each other to just keep going and all that. So I just like to ask you and like a message to all of the viewers, all of the audience that we have here about how to keep this motivation going on to do things for the community without seeking any reward for it and anything like that. I mean, what is the core idea behind this volunteerism that we have, and how should we go about it? So Anupam, I'll start with you.
Okay, Waqas. So I think let me gather my thoughts. So the experience of IX has been that it has produced a huge social effect and that is a very perceptible social effect which we can see. So, and I'll give you a very quick example that two ISPs in a region are definitely competitors, but when you see them together having a breakfast and trying to share routes or have a discussion on Banras, you have changed the competition in a very, very fair way. Okay, and that's the impact which I see on the ground, and that is what which helps me moving in this direction. So to me, while establishing an IX and increasing the internet resiliency was a very technical thought, okay, which should be done. But when you see the social impact happening in front of your eyes, and that's when things changes. Now I have got cases where one ISP, when they want to expand and they want to purchase another ISP, they come to us that can you facilitate this kind of meetings with other ISPs and also. So a very fair environment where everybody is working, they are competing with each other, but they are competing on their technical merits and not competing just for the purpose of competition, and they are free to come onto a platform, and this essentially has created trust. Okay, so I'll leave with this thought that when you are part of something by God's grace or whatever has happened, I don't know why I entered ISOC 12 years ago, but 12 years appears to be a very small timeline compared to the impact which you can create. This I would have definitely not been able to create if I would have just stuck to my job 9 to 5. So that is one thing which helps you to move ahead, that whatever time additionally you have, if you are able to create a social impact, I think that is what drives at least me. And I think that is the core essence of volunteering as well. I'll stop here, Waqas. Thank you for this question.
Perfect. Thank you. So, Achie.
Thanks, man. I'd like to continue the statement earlier. So it's really fun when you're talking with your competition. For my end, my objective was for us to have a group chat or friends in social media. The fact that they greet you on your birthday is already a big thing, and you having lunch or having everybody seeing you together, it's a big step. Yeah. On the volunteer stuff, it's really when you come to this one, there's no finish line in what we're doing. No? There's always something improved, and it will never be enough. I think that's part of what we need to accept. And for the internet, I think it should be an internet of conscience. Like everybody's part of the internet. So our action or inaction affects everybody. So we need to do our part consciously to make it better, or at least try. We are probably responsible for this, not because we should, because we're here, but we can. And I think we care.
Yeah.
Because
yes, we do
care. We are the internet, and that's driving this for me. I think historically when I was in the company and until now, so I was very focused on what we're doing. But after being exposed, I see the bigger picture, and it's the internet.
It's good to see that now you see the bigger picture. So with that, Kabir, we have 1 minute. So please, your closing statement.
1 minute is not enough. But what Anupam mentioned about IXP, come on, man, it's the NOGs, especially Sanog started all these, and I think because of Sanog, we are a global village or global family right now, and South Asia is not different countries. In case of ICT, we are very close to each other, and we always greet and treat everyone, ask people to join, and that's a wonderful experience. I feel really proud of myself being a part of this, and I believe all of them will start joining each other and make the world a better world and better living space. Thank you, Waqas.
Thank you, Kabir. Anupam, Achie, wonderful discussion. I mean, I really, there's so many takeaways to note here, but like I see we only have 30 seconds, so I just close down with this thought that something about Achie mentioned as well, that when you talk to your competitors, you probably find many similarities, and that's the common ground probably we need to reach, not only for internet development, but also generally as human beings as well. So thank you so much to you guys and also to the audience who were here. Stay safe and have a good day. Thank you.